good, folks? And welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room, the only show that gives you the hows and whys behind anything and everything you need.
Yes.
Comes to the Buffalo Bills. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner. And Eric, got another Bills victory to break down, some intricacies and pieces heading into a very important week in week 4 against the Miami Dolphins. But before we start to look forward, we always want to make sure we look back and really break down things and put things into perspective. And we were talking offline a minute ago. This one was hard to kind of put together because there's a lot of good to break down in this Washington tape on both sides of the ball. Another really strong performance for this Bills team. Good to have that kind of strong performance going into Miami week. But again, Eric, we sit here in another episode of the Film Room with a lot of positives to break down and take away from another strong performance from this Bills team.
A lot of positives. We're going to have film from both sides of the ball. And before, we were going live and I was prepping for the show and I was trying to catch up on some content that I missed from, the Bills on YouTube. And I started watching that mic'd up of Gabe Davis. And, later in that clip and segment where they're already up several touchdowns. You saw how excited and happy they were, and they're just out there having fun. Like, I can only imagine the grind they go through during the week, right? Practicing and watching film and all that good stuff, getting treatment. And to go into a game and dominate on the road like they did, it's got to feel good. For us film junkies, as soon as we got the film of this game, we're writing timestamps, talking about different plays, some new wrinkles that we saw. And so when we get to break it down and finally bring it to you on Wednesday, when, as Anthony said, I know a lot of people are already turning the page, but we don't turn the page until we bring this content to you. So sit back, as I say, always grab your beverages and dive into some film with us. Because as Anthony said, this was a fun one. And we're going to show you both sides of the ball and how the Bills dominated this game.
Eric, what's been really nice to see for the second week in a row on both sides of the ball, we've got really fun pieces to break down from this team schematically, but also from an individual player perspective. Like, we could do a whole show and just purely not talk about anything individual from player execution, just talk about the philosophical piece of it or the design or the schematics on either side. We could also do the same thing if we just focused on individual execution and individual wins. And in the NFL, the sports in general, you could win with scheme or you can win with talent or individual execution plays, however you want to define it. The Bills just continue to win in multiple ways, schematically, individually, offensively, defensively. And Eric, as you sit here, kind of taking it all in as we grinded the tape, about to start, getting into it fully into this episode. Where's your head at overall on this Bills team? Another strong victory. They're looking good on both sides of the ball. Is there any particular player or side of the ball where your mind first goes to? What's the biggest takeaway you have as we sit here after week 3 and the Bills are 2-1?
Well, I think it starts on the defensive side with Sean McDermott. The mentality on that side of the ball is just different. And I know we all expected it. We expected that aggressive nature. But I feel like the defense has hit a different gear, a different level. They're super aggressive, yes, but they're playing so fast. They're dominating up front in most of these games. And it was no different against the Commanders. I mean, they were aggressive. They were jumping routes. It was very complimentary when you talk about coverage and pass rush. They're getting sacks. They're getting turnovers. They're really putting it together on that side of the ball. And they're doing some cool little things that we're going to show you when we get to the film. And so for me, on that side of the ball, the mentality is just completely different. They're taking on that smart yet aggressive mindset that Sean McDermott wants them to play with. On the offensive side of the ball, I like some of the wrinkles that we're going to talk about tonight, some of the wrinkles that Dorsey is throwing out there. He understands that, Spencer Brown at times is going to need some help. So we saw that last week with the Raiders. We saw that even more with the Commanders because they not only had to help him, but they had to do it in a way where they weren't sacrificing up the middle against obviously some very talented pass rushers and defensive tackles in Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen.
Yeah.
So I liked what they did. We're going to show you that. So I think both sides of the ball have some really cool things that we want to talk about, which is why we had to make this a dual episode, covering both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot. Offensively, I'm impressed with how they've continued to mitigate the strengths of opponents. And obviously, as a person who still believes in the run game, I love the success they found on the ground in a multitude of ways. Against the Raiders, it was more duo and downhill. And in this game, we saw a little more pull in action, some gap runs with pullers and taking advantage inside of that Washington defense. And then on the defensive side for the Bills, you nailed it. We spent so much time this offseason talking about what the Bills defense could look like under Sean McDermott. And to try and put it together, we used previous stuff from, what the Bills had done briefly when McDermott really ran things or called plays early on. But we went back and we looked at what he had done in Carolina. We went back and broke down his coaching tree philosophy coming from Jim Johnson and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm just very excited that it turned out to be kind of exactly what we predicted.
Yeah.
But importantly, that it's working. Like that aggression, that playing fast physically, but also playing fast mentally. I love seeing how successful they've been. We're going to break down some of these pieces with the simulated pressures and the creepers, then showing pressure and backing out. Their 5 and 6 man pressures have been successful. Like they're hitting on all cylinders up front and on the back end. There's some of the plays too where, again, we're going to show like where the Bills, like the story is up front because, they generated pressure, got a sack. But the bigger story is the back end with how they distributed the route distribution and everybody is covered. Like they're just clicking on all cylinders. And when we start on that side of the ball, Eric, that defense, that mentality piece, and you bring up this graphic with how they just, it's ridiculous, and I have in my notes from a pressure standpoint, the Bills currently sit per SIS as the top. They're in the top 3. They are third in pressure percentage at 43.3%. And Eric, you've got the individual pressure leaders from week 3 against Washington, just unreal. And then there's even the fine print there for DaQuan Jones. The bottom there, like the Bills front, especially the defensive line, had a monstrous day against Washington.
Yeah, and so Next Gen Stats has this graphic. It was fantastic. They say the Bills pressured Sam Howell on 27 of 39 dropbacks at 69.2%. The second highest pressure rate in a game in the NGS era. Seven different Bills defenders generated 4+ pressures, led by Ed Oliver. So someone asked, are we going to get some Ed Oliver? Yeah, you're going to get some Ed Oliver film. You're going to get several of these guys showing up on the defensive side of the ball. Because again, when we're talking defense, it's the aggressiveness, the mentality change there. And I mean, some of the numbers, they got 7 interceptions in 3 games. They have a 13% pressure percentage rate. They have 9 total takeaways, all, tops in the league. They're doing some different things on that side of the ball. And that's something that the switch from Frazier to Sean McDermott really is already showing, in the numbers and the way they're playing. They're getting those turnovers to help their offense. And when you talk about complementary football, they got so many turnovers and negative plays on the Commanders. It gave the offense that many more opportunities. And by the end of the game, by the fourth quarter, yes, it was close. But if you go back and watch that, look at some of those top tier first round draft picks along that D line. They got tired out because they were on the field so much. And so, yes, it was close in the end, but you saw them pull away because of those turnovers, the defensive approach, but also because the offense was on the field a lot more, pounding the rock with some of the bigger backs at times. So it all started up front. So we're going to see a bunch of this film. And when you look at not just this game, but just overall, man, the amount of pressure that the Bills are generating, you talked about Ed Oliver, you talk about DaQuan Jones, Leonard Floyd winning cleanly a lot. I mean, Leonard Floyd is top 10 in pressure percentage among defensive ends and D tackles with at least 50 snaps through 3 weeks. He's top 10. He's 7th overall in 18.6 pressure percentage, according to True Media. DaQuan Jones, he's at 18.2%. So right behind Floyd, 11th overall. Ed Oliver, 17.9%, 15th overall. So that's among all defensive linemen, D tackles and DNs. So those 3 guys are really, putting up. And this is how the Bills kind of started last year with their D-line until some injuries crept up, but it's nice to see them controlling things in the trenches.
Absolutely. And, no matter what kind of site or metric you want to use, I've got some PFF stats right here, so 234 qualifying edges and defensive tackles. So 234, again, to put that in everybody's brain, 234 qualifying edges and defensive tackles. The Bills have 6 players in the top 60 for pass rush productivity and 4 in the top 25. Leonard Floyd is 9th. Ed Oliver is 19th. DaQuan Jones is 20th. Jordan Phillips is 23rd. Greg Rousseau is 36th. And AJ Epenesa is tied for 56th. And Eric, it's the opposite now. Like last year, things were humming and it was like, man, the addition of Von Miller has really helped. Now things are humming, and it's the opposite of being like, what could this look like once you inject Von Miller in? And we almost have a switch as opposed to what happened last year, which makes this conversation even more exciting and more interesting going forward, because what happens when you bring in a lock as a Hall of Famer into this lineup, and then you can start to get more creative and there's just more juice. It's been very impressive to see how successful the Bills front has been and how good they've been from a pressure standpoint. Again, considering they are not a heavy blitz team, but they're getting home and they're getting pressure with their creepers and their simulateds and different looks. It's been a really well-designed game plan week in and week out by Sean McDermott. And then the individual execution up front, again, the players deserve credit for as much as McDermott does as well. And everybody's just kind of firing on all cylinders right now.
Right. And you mentioned simulating creeper pressures. We're going to show them to you, but against Howell and the Commanders offense, I mean, this is an offense led by Eric Bieniemy, who has a really good history against the Bills defense. Yep. Obviously, he knows a lot about them and played them a bunch of times in some big games. But the Bills defense, again, a slightly different defense with McDermott at the helm. They got 125 yards off of QB sacks against Howell. And he's a guy that, a lot of times invited that by holding on to the ball. Mm-hmm. But the Bills, to their credit, regardless of what defensive linemen were in, they were pushing the pocket right into his lap. He's under 6'1". So just imagine guys like Groot, DaQuan Jones, and those guys pushing the pocket right into his lap. He's not able to see over the top of these guys as that offensive linemen are getting pushed into him. So I thought the Bills did a great job of controlling the line of scrimmage, playing on their side of the line of scrimmage when it comes to rushing the passer. But those sim and creeper pressures, I feel like it's been nice to have those, over the years with McDermott, as Frazier was the DC, and they had Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. But the addition of Terrel Bernard and his ability to rush a passer, because we always said it, like we liked Tremaine Edmonds for what he was asked to do. But one thing we weren't a big fan of was making him a pass rusher. He's not that good of a pass rusher, which is why, you had that joke for the longest time, Edgeman's, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not that guy, but Terrel Bernard was coming out, and he's showing it very early. And that's what makes this discussion about sim and creeper pressure so exciting, because Milano and Bernard are very dangerous when they're asked to rush the passer.
Absolutely. Like we talked about it back when we broke down Bernard's tape after he got drafted. Like, one of our favorite pieces about him was how effective he was as a blitzer. And even if he wasn't getting home, just coming forward like a heat-seeking missile and blowing up a guard or a center or a tackle. And you saw that reflected in this game. His pacing, his timing, his physicality coming forward is tremendous for him individually, but it also mimics stylistically how Matt Milano comes forward from like a gap shooting, knifing perspective. So you've got these two quick trigger closing linebackers that pair well with this front, that pair well with a defensive coordinator in Sean McDermott, who loves to mug A-gaps and loves to bring linebackers and loves to bring 5 and 6 man pressures and show and back out and drop and play games and run a sim and run a creeper. And Eric, that's, again, I'm really trying really hard not to pat ourselves on the back right now, but that's something we talked about where we wanted Bernard to be the starting linebacker for this team. We talked about it in the offseason because of his skill set. And we talked about, not in a bad way or negative way, what Sean McDermott could do with him would be different than what was asked of Tremaine Edmonds.
100%.
And we're seeing Bernard execute individually, but it's also a kudos to McDermott for setting him up for success and kind of leaning hard into his skill set. And it's just been a really good marriage thus far between McDermott's defense and Bernard's skill set.
Yeah, and I bring up this tweet just real quick to go on this Terrel Bernard tangent, because, as you guys know, I love linebackers. So we're going to talk about Bernard real quick. If you haven't seen the video I did earlier this week, after the show, get to the YouTube channel and take a look at it. But you see Nate Tice talking about Bernard, calling out this play, and he absolutely did. You see Rodriguez come into the backfield here. It's a split set, but then you see the center and you see Howell pointing out the mic, and what the center and quarterback are doing here is they're identifying Matt Milano as the Mike. So that means essentially they're running a zone run. So they're combo block right here on Tim Settle to Matt Milano. And Bernard immediately calls it out. You see him right here. Look, he's coming right at you, Milano. He reads it. And while this play didn't count because there was a hold on Jordan Phillips, watch the movement by Bernard. He stays over the top of that combination block on Jordan Phillips and goes and gets the ball. So, and you saw this a bunch in this game. Here's one where he noticed that Samuel is in the backfield. You see him pointing out right there that, hey, number 4, Samuel, the wide receiver, is in the backfield. And so he says, hey, Terrell, we're supposed to switch here. You're supposed to be inside the box. I got to get outside the box. And you see him, again, prior to the play, communicating, taking charge, commanding it. There was a 3rd and long where Matt Milano was playing shallow. And Bernard says, hey, get back, get back. Like, what are you doing? It's 3rd and 19. So he's commanding these veterans. He's doing a great job. And here's one more I found. This one, he gets caught in traffic, but he's calling out the play. You see, watch his arms right here. He's saying they're going to cross up, and he's pointing out the tight end right here. The tight end's offline. He comes across the formation. Then they also have some jet action coming across. So you see them right there across. And so he's calling that out before the play even starts. So much like us every week, you can tell Terrel Bernard is a film junkie. This dude's pointing out plays and calling them out beforehand. And it's been super exciting to watch in just 3 games. I've done, I think, 2 or 3 videos on Bernard in 3 games like already. So keep it coming, TB. Like, keep it coming, because I'll break him down every week.
He's been crushing it, and yeah, you've been crushing it doing the breakdowns every Monday. It feels like I'm always like, I wonder what video Eric's going to do this Monday. And I'm like, it's going to be Bernard.
Yeah, TB.
Yeah, he deserves it. Like, he's played so well, and him. Not even to tie it too much into, looking forward, but that type of recognition and diagnosing and calling things out and communicating, that's going to be tremendously important against an opponent like Miami, who's using motion and misdirection to just cause hesitation and chaos mentally for defenses. Bernard has the type of smarts and processing and recognition to not only use it to his individual benefit and execute, but to get everybody else set and to prepare everybody and set them up for success. And he's been a really nice addition to this defense stylistically, and then also a positive domino effect for the rest of the defense with his leadership and communication, which was a huge question when everybody was talking about who's going to wear the green dot and so on and so forth.
Right.
He's really winning physically, but also from, like we continue to talk about, from the neck up with how smart he is.
No doubt. And so let's jump into more of that defensive film. Sean McDermott put on a masterclass. So we're going to try to show you not just the players making these plays on the field, but we're going to show you some of the X's and O's, some of the concepts and plays that, Sean McDermott called. So on this play, we're going to start right off the bat with EO, Ed Oliver, and DaQuan Jones here on this play. Watch, I call Ed Oliver the Tasmanian devil sometimes, because he's a home wrecker. Like, he just wrecks things, man. Like, look at him slant inside, and Gates is trying to pick up DaQuan Jones, and watch him just blow him up. All right. So then DaQuan's like, all right, I'm going to loop around. But look at this beast. Watch him push right through here, get under the pads of 76, and just they meet at the quarterback here. Oliver is a Tasmanian devil. Sometimes he doesn't have the cleanest wins, but he will wreck things. I mean, a bull in a china shop, right? Like, that is the perfect way to describe him on this play.
And that makes it hard too. Like, if you're the quarterback in this instance, like Sam Howell, when things are just that chaotic, when it's just chaotic and violent, it almost makes it harder for you to process than if it was just a regular clean old like twist or a regular game up front. When there's just like bodies being thrown about and people are colliding, you're trying to navigate that chaos. It becomes a hard thing to do, especially for, a second-year quarterback, but a first-year starter for Howell. And yeah, it's beautiful what Oliver does. And he had several reps, and we're going to take a peek. Like, he's doing things individually so far this year and like winning and flashing, but he's also got a lot of plays like this where he's doing the dirty work that are allowing others to succeed. I know he shows up on the stat sheet because he gets the Howell on this one, but his initial movement just frees up DaQuan Jones to make a play. So he's winning in splash play categories, but he's also winning in the aspect of like doing his 111th and doing the dirty work. And this is a nice play inside, just that really symbolized, kind of represented like a microcosm of what the defensive line did, especially on the interior. Like, Ed and DaQuan against the pass and against the run really controlled the line of scrimmage and just created chaos nonstop against Washington. Right.
And a segue to the next play is on this play, watch how the motion happens across, and you're going to see Terrel Bernard. You're going to see TB communicate to Matt Milano. He's off to the right side of the screen here, off the screen. He's communicating that the running back is exiting out. We always talk about this. This is a push call. So that means TB is pushing that running back Gibson out to Milano. So now he's getting his eyes on the tight end. You see it right there. He gets his eyes on the tight end. Tight end selling that over route. TB is looking at the quarterback and he's like, okay, is he going to him immediately? He's not. So what does he do as that guy's running that over route, that crossing route? Communicates to Taron Johnson, hey, here comes your guy. Take him over. Command at that second level. So now Taron Johnson carries that tight end. And so now Bernard's like, all right, who's my next threat? Who's in my zone? Oh, there's a guy right there trying to sneak in behind me. Where do you think the quarterback's looking? Right there. He takes that away. Quarterback decides not to check it down. And that's when the rush gets home. Complementary football, pass rush and coverage working together to, bring the quarterback down for a sack. And this happened several times in this game. When it comes to coverage sacks versus pass rush sacks, we saw some pass rush wins that really just won the rep. Leonard, Floyd comes to mind, but there were a lot of plays like this that the pressure and the sacks came because of really good coverage on the back end. And Anthony, this play RPO again prior to the snap, Bernard pointing out, hey, offline tight end. A lot of times, what does that offline tight end really alert the defense to when you're talking, whether it's the run game or pass game?
That you're looking to see, is he going to come across in motion? Like what's he going to signify? Like, is he coming across on a counter? Like he kind of functions in that world in terms of being an identifier and almost kind of like a pulling guard or tackle at times. Like you're watching that interior. If you're a linebacker, you're looking for the flash of color. Here it can represent a similar piece as well. So you see Cole Turner activate, and as soon as he activates and goes inside, Bernard just clicks. He reads it, and then again, Eric, this isn't a blitz, but it functions, or like a pass rush blitz, but it functions with what we liked about with his skill set. When he comes forward, he is a heat-seeking missile, and he detonates on Turner.
Yeah, he does.
But watch how it's not only the physicality, but then the processing. So he detonates on Turner, and then he looks at Gibson, because when he was destroying Cole Turner, he didn't get to see the mesh point. So he looks at Gibson to see if Gibson has the ball. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He immediately gets his eyes on the Howell, and then it becomes see ball, get ball, and he hunts. Like this is a physical play from physical execution, but it's also a very strong mental rep, a good processing rep. So even in the midst of the physical chaos, he's still processing and thinking and diagnosing from start to finish and in between. This is a tremendous rep. It's arguably my favorite rep from the entire game, just because of everything that it encompasses from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, pre to post snap, again, identifying that sniffer, that offline tight end, a guy that when you're talking the run game, he usually, if you key him, the Bills love keying the tight end that's offline, especially, when they're hipped off like this off the tackle, they love keying him because usually that guy's going to take you to the ball. So this is an RPO. This is a run pass option. Howell has a speed out, a free access speed out to the outside, but he decides not to throw that here. And, he probably should have just threw this away. But as you said, Bernard is just, as soon as he realizes, I love how it's like a horror movie. Like, okay, I'm coming downhill. I'm going to wreck things right there. And then he's like looking at Gibson. He's like, oh, he doesn't have the ball. And then he just gets his eyes on the guy, on the girl that's running upstairs. And so he just chases her down. It's just amazing stuff from Bernard. I love it, man. Again, smart and physical. You see the processing. You see it on the field. You see it in the film. It's just so much fun to watch when you watch his film, man. I love it. And we have to get his interception in as well. And again, prior to the snap, communicating among the second and third levels, making sure everything is, legit there. You see him just gain his depth, squeeze that number 2 wide receiver right here, eyes on the quarterback, very adept in zone coverage, doesn't take the bait on this little flare or check down right here, stays in his area, is disciplined, and then lets the eyes of Howell take him to the ball. Here comes that dig across the middle. There's a clearing route. And what does Bernard do? He just gets on his horse and then high points it for the interception. Again, smart football player here. Very instinctual. And I said it in the video I did on Monday. I don't like to use that word. I don't like to use the word instinctual because it almost cheapens the processing, the experience, the film study that goes into a player making a play like this. But for as much as you see Bernard around the ball, it's hard to argue the fact that he has very good instincts. It's just too coincidental to ignore at this point.
And, Eric, I think we talked about in the last week's episode that, he will read the quarterback and let the QB's eyes take him to the football.
Yeah,
and
may have.
Yeah, maybe. And and Howell here, I don't want to say shows his inexperience, but he's staring this down like the
Mhm.
whole way. And for a guy like Bernard, who is going to key in on the QB's eyes, we talked about it. It can be sometimes risk reward because if the QB knows you're doing that, they can move you with their eyes and then fire it in where you used to be or where you should be or where they actually want to go. And that's not what happens here. Like Howell's eyes take Bernard directly to the football, and then he has the athleticism to go up and sky and make that interception. But I like overall just the intelligence from knowing the situation and the sticks. Like it's 3rd and 19. Like you don't need to come forward. Like continue to gain your depth.
Mhm.
Like you can come forward and make the tackle. They're already in, close enough field goal range. So yeah, you don't want to let them get closer, but you just don't want to give up this first down. There's no reason to jump underneath on anything. There's no reason to sit and stay and just cover grass. Continue to gain depth. And Eric, it's like you said, like he just sees it and like feels De'Ami Brown coming behind him and is like, he drops right into
Yeah.
where that window is, like right where the ball is going to go. Like, and whether it's on purpose or not, it's just, him using his eyes to watch the QB, let the QB take him to the ball. He does this consistently. And if you're not going to move him with your eyes, he's going to go right to where the ball is. And he continuously finds himself around the football against the run in coverage. And, again, whether you want to use the words instinctual or not, it's just uncanny how he continues to always be around the football.
Yeah, and RJ says that's probably going to hurt him against Tua. I think he's going to have his moments. I do think that there are going to be times where Tua's going to move him and Tua's going to move several defenders.
Yeah.
But I do also think that it's Bernard not just reading the eyes of the quarterback. He senses the routes behind him. And that, again, that is a good thing. So, yeah, I think Tua will and some other quarterbacks will move Bernard at times. But it's not just the eyes. He's also sensing routes behind him. As you said, he understands route concepts, which is especially when we're talking zone coverage. Like he understands that, if the quarterback, for example, if the quarterback was looking out here, again, he's going to show that discipline. He's not just going to jump down there. He knows that Taron Johnson's down there. He's going to take that into account, but he's also going to realize that, hey, maybe he's doing that for a reason. Maybe he's doing that for a reason, that if his eyes are outside, and this applies to Tua maybe more than any quarterback so far in the first 3 weeks, is that if Tua's looking outside right, he's likely throwing outside or inside to the right, right? He's going to be throwing it inside. That's where he likes to attack. So don't let the eyes lie to you. And I think Bernard, he's not going to just count. He's not just going to count on him reading the eyes of the quarterback. He's also going to take the route concept that is, behind him. He knows there's 3 wide receivers to his side. He's not just going to jump down, especially given the situation on 3rd and long. So he'll have his moments. He will. And we said that last week. He will have his moments.
And real quick to add to that too, like that and you highlighting on the play before with him, or a couple plays before, like highlighting the push call to Milano, like that's part of what we liked for him in this defense, because he has that capability because of playing at Baylor, because of playing under Dave Aranda. Like he's very adept at recognizing route concepts and communicating pre and post snap and adjusting everyone. So like what we're seeing here with him, given that push call, with him understanding the down and distance and situation and sensing these routes, this is what he did at Baylor. And this is why we thought he could be a good fit coming in, and, why we wanted him to win that job.
Yeah, and I mean, that push call, that simple push call, they ran that under Dave Aranda.
Yeah, we literally broke that down.
We literally broke it down. Yeah. And I mean, again, when it came to Bernard coming out of college, we also talked about his pass rush skill set, and you see that timing here on this pressure. And this is something the Bills don't do a lot of. They don't bring a lot of 6-man pressures. And so for their linebackers to get home here, it's a testament to everyone doing their 111th on this play. So what the Bills are doing is they're overloading the left side of this offensive line. So on the snap, you're going to get Ed Oliver crashing inside in that A gap. And then Charles is going to have to squeeze on that to help out, because you can see the center is looking at DaQuan Jones. So he squeezes. Matt Milano has the running back, and he's attacking that inside shoulder. And then you're getting Bernard on the looper right here. This is essentially a stunt with the linebackers included on this. And once again, the timing and then the closing speed on Howell there is just fantastic. This is, again, they're asking Bernard to do different things than they asked of Tremaine Edmonds. And you see him playing a little more closer to the line of scrimmage, whether it's run or pass. Because he's more of a downhill player when you're talking like the run game. He's not that, that safety net with the long arms like Edmonds was. You see Bernard coming downhill as a pass rusher, something that Edmonds is not good at. I'm sorry, guys, he's not. And we saw in the first 3 games, I mean, he's already rushed the quarterback, 10 times or 9 or 10 times, which is well above what they normally do from their linebacker position, aside from Milano, because Milano always has a good amount of rushes on the quarterback. I just love this play call and the finish by Terrel Bernard.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites overall as well. And, you look at it from a numbers perspective. Washington has their 5 offensive linemen and their running back. So they got 6 in protection versus 6 rushers. So in theory, you've got 6 on 6. You've got a body for a body, a hat on a hat. So if the Bills are going to get pressure, someone has to win individually, or you have to figure out a way to create a free runner. And that's exactly what happens with basically what's effectively, like you said, like a twist or a stunt with that game from Bernard. Like, look at what you have inside. You've got 3 Bills defenders versus 4 blockers for Washington. That creates that free runner for Bernard, or that free runner opportunity. And that's so beautiful. Like, again, this is tying into what I mentioned earlier with Ed Oliver. Like, Oliver doesn't show up on the stat sheet with this one. He makes this play because he takes up 2 players. He takes up the center and the guard. Milano crashes into Gibson, and now Bernard gets to come free. And that's a great job. Again, like you said, everybody doing their 111.
Yeah.
Like, Bernard makes this play, and kudos to him, but it gets set up because of the rest of the rush doing its individual jobs so he can come free.
Yeah.
And
Ed Oliver here, he's taking that 2-on-1 here, and
Spike.
he does it with such force that, as you said, like, Charles can't kick out. And
No.
as Charles passes Oliver on to Gates, he cannot kick out and get a piece of Bernard, like maybe just shove him a little wide to give Howell that quarter second to get rid of the ball. He's not able to because of the force of Ed Oliver.
Yeah, and then look at where Milano crashes into. He takes that inside shoulder of Gibson, so he impedes Charles a little bit as well, and then goes through Gibson. And then the other piece, you highlighted it with Bernard, his path to Howell is so efficient. It's well timed. And then we talk about it with, stunts all the time in games with the defensive line, that when you're that looper being tight to that spike, and he's hugging that space there. And look at his gait. He doesn't have to shuffle. He doesn't have to put his foot in the ground. It's almost like literally like a perfectly curved line. I don't think he breaks speed or he breaks his gait. Like, once he starts running, it's just smooth. He just turns it because his route to the quarterback is efficient. There's no wasted movement. There's no wasted steps. He doesn't get through the hole and have to like break down and then flatten and stop his feet. It's just one consistent curved line, which allows him, his straightest point and the most efficient point.
Speed, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like, he doesn't break. I would love to have like a GPS or MPH counter for him to see, because I really don't think he broke top speed. He stayed because of his path to the QB, and his path to the QB was created by the game up front. Like, I love that play. Like, the good design from McDermott and the well-timed blitz from Bernard, in addition to the individual support up front.
Yeah, good pressure. Again, aggressive mindset. They're bringing it, and when they do, they're incorporating other rushers. They're incorporating the Mike linebacker, which is something they haven't done a lot of in the past. So here's a play where they don't actually bring an extra rusher, but they are able to get the interception by Micah Hyde. And this is one of those pressures that we're talking about, those creeper pressures, those simulated pressures. So typically, Anthony, when you're talking creeper pressure, again, we've broken this down many times, but for those that are new here, usually creeper pressures, these linebackers are at normal linebacker depth. And so the Bills aren't really it doesn't look like they're bringing a pressure. So a simulated pressure, which, we're going to break one down later, say these 2 linebackers up in these A gaps. Now they have 6 at the line of scrimmage. They're showing pressure. That is a simulated pressure, but a lot of people use them interchangeably. We here in the film room, this is how we break it down. Creeper pressures, usually these linebackers are at their normal level. They're not really showing like they're going to blitz, but as you see here, you can see Milano add into this pressure. So he is the 4th rusher. The Bills are still only bringing 4 on this creeper pressure. So if they're bringing Milano, someone else has to drop out from a traditional position of a pass rusher, and that's the defensive end right here dropping out. And the Bills on this creeper pressure are just running a simple coverage, and it's cover 3. So they're running a cover 3 creeper. And so that DN is dropping out to the passing strength up here. And so Hyde, all he's doing, he's the flats defender, and he said it I don't know if it was post game or in his presser, but he said he saw the running back come out fast.
Yes.
And he read that it was a flat route. It was a diagonal route to the flat. So he just made a beat to it, and he read it perfectly. So he really is just heading down to his assignment, but he's doing it on a great angle to intercept the ball here. And Anthony, real quick, as Hyde is flying down to the flats here, watch how he kind of lets up and kind of flattens it out a little bit.
Yes.
Just kind of baiting the quarterback throw. Oh my God, he's throwing it, and then he jumps it. Watch out right here, right there. And then, oh, there it is. Give me that. Just great stuff from, again, scheme-wise, the timing, and then putting your playmakers in positions to make plays. Micah Hyde does on this interception.
Yes, everything from start to finish was beautiful here. And just to reinforce the whole creeper and simulated piece, like the whole idea that you're bringing a non-traditional rusher and dropping a traditional one. So that's where like the whole pressure piece comes in. It's like a blitz, but you're not actually rushing 5 or more defenders. So you still have 7 defenders in coverage.
And this doesn't count as a blitz, right? Because they're not adding on. They're not sending 5 or more. It's still 4.
Yes, and that's a huge piece where you're seeing, like, I know there's graphs and charts coming through of being like, oh, the Bills, pressure rate versus their blitz rate. So you might see a look like this and be like, oh, well, they're blitzing. They're not blitzing because they're still only rushing 4. They're just dropping a traditional rusher in Leonard Floyd and bringing a non-traditional one in Matt Milano. And even that piece is nice, right? Like, simple game up front. It creates a free runner with what they have set up. I also like if you go when the rush starts, Greg Rousseau, when he attacks inside on this, he gets his hands, bang, he gets one on the guard and the other on the center. So he occupies both of them, which creates that 2-on-1 for the left tackle. The left tackle does what he has to do, which is the guy who has the quickest path to the quarterback, so I have to go inside. He takes Milano, which creates a free rush for AJ Epenesa. Epenesa bears down on him, gets his hands up into the face of Howell. And Eric, like you talked about earlier, Howell's not the tallest guy on the field, so he's got to put a little more arc on this ball. And that also helps Hyde, right? So Gibson is kind of his outlet on this play. And he's trying to fire it down fast. He's got pressure in his face. He can't really see over or around Epenesa, so he has to put it over him, throws it blindly. Hyde baits him, jumps it from the
kind of inside too, right? Because watch where he releases it. It's kind of inside. And again, I think that's kind of why Hyde flattens out here a little bit before attacking. So that length definitely affected the quarterback on this play.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason too he flattens out is, he's expecting that ball to be more out in front of Gibson, and then he can just collapse down and make the tackle short of the sticks. But that ball ends up going inside. And, again, Gibson comes out, Hyde reads his body language. There's no like, okay, is he selling outside and coming back in? Is it going to be a Texas route or an angle route? The biggest combination you could have here is maybe he's faking looking back and he's going to end up going on a wheel, but knowing the down and distance. Yeah, you're playing that percentage. Oh, it's 3rd and short. He's just going to the flat. I'm jumping it. Hyde reads it immediately. He clicks. So you get the great individual play by Hyde within the scheme, but the scheme, again, for me, really starts up front. We love creepers and sims on this show because of how it can dictate protection. It has the opportunity to create free runners. And again, this is a big piece for everybody like watching. This is what creepers and sims can do. You are only rushing 4, but because you're doing it in a different way, you can create a free runner. And that's what the Bills do. So the Bills don't have to bring 5 to create a great pressure or get a free runner. They just rush 4. But because they do it in a different way, it creates a win up front. And again, another piece, everybody doing their 111th. Like Greg Rousseau helps make this play happen by occupying the guard in the center.
Yeah. And you talk about attacking protections with these sim and creeper pressures. Again, we talk numbers game. Ed Oliver, look, he's not even rushing. Look how many guys are occupying over there, because those 2 guys are sliding out because they thought they had to worry about Floyd. As you said, Rousseau slants inside. Now they got a 2-on-1 there. Now this guy's in a pickle. He's got to choose between the most dangerous threat in Milano or staying outside on the big guy, Epenesa. And so what he does is, we always talk about, he has to execute a squeeze. He's got to power step inside. He's got to protect that inside gap. That's the quickest line, the most dangerous threat. So he's got to do that, shut that down. He does a great job of doing it too. But guess what? You got that free runner. And they did it to the Bills. We're going to see it on the offensive side of the ball. The Commanders did it to Josh Allen, but Josh Allen was able to get outside the pocket and throw the floater to Stefon Diggs for a big play. So great scheme, man. Great execution. And again, Hyde, a playmaker, back in the lineup, making plays. It was beautiful. It was a great read. He almost baited him. It was a great read by him when when it came to, again, reading the down and distance, the angle of departure on the running back, getting out to his assignment, and then just finishing at the point. And I agree. I think he could have taken that to the house if he stayed on his
Right?
feet.
Yeah, like he had a real like he jumps in and goes down, and I was like, oh, okay. But if he keeps his feet, like Gibson is already still kind of like flat footed, man. Like Hyde had a real chance to house that, and that's a nice piece. Like his, I don't want to jinx it, but his addition back into the lineup just creates that playmaking ability on the back end. Like you get the high floor play, but you also get the high ceiling turnover takeaway potential that he brings. He makes a big difference for this team all over the field.
Right. And so here's a clear, clean win from Leonard Floyd out here. Nice touch and go. I like to call this a touch and go because he makes it look like he's going to, almost do like a two-handed swipe, or at least, go to speed to power. But he just, as soon as those hands of the offensive lineman come up, he's able to touch and go there. But he's a guy that, man, with Von Miller out, this is the role that we've wanted, for him. And we were guys that were saying that, hey, Leonard Floyd's a legit starter, and he is, especially when you talk about the pass rush game. And as the Commanders bring that tight end across the formation, and Floyd's like, okay, so I got to go a little wider, all right? Because obviously the alignment changes. Milano moves a little bit. Floyd's a little wider, and you're like, wow, that's a long ways that Floyd has to go. But that's also a long way for this tackle. And you see him go into chase mode immediately. Normally, you don't want your tackle to open up and try to meet this guy out wide. But he has to go into chase down mode, and there's just no way with the hand usage and speed and length of Floyd that he's going to get out there and Floyd is able to bring down the quarterback.
Again, something that we've talked about for a while, like Von Miller was the antithesis for the edge archetype that the Bills have liked in the Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane era. And Leonard Floyd is in that Von-esque mold, that athleticism, that juice off the edge. And I love the move. I love the get off. He timed. So the play before, he got a pressure, literally the play before, and he started to time the snap.
That the cross chop?
Yes, exactly. And whoa, I got to stop.
Oh, man.
That's absolutely tremendous. The one, Arterius, I hope I'm saying that, Arterius Aurelius, which is a baller name. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. 1, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
2, thank you very much for the very kind words saying keep doing what you're doing. The best Bills coverage on YouTube. 3, that's a significant chunk of change for,
thank you so
what
much.
we do here. That's absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. That I completely forgot what play we were breaking down.
I know.
Super awesome,
yeah,
man.
that's super humbling. We appreciate your generosity and jumping in the film room with us each and every week. And we always say it, and we go on these long tangents about we're not able to do this stuff without you guys, without your support. And it's just not, the monetized side of it. It's, sharing things, telling your friends about us. We're not able to get this film. We're not able to do the telestration with Huddle. Like even just broadcasting, we're not able to do any of this stuff without your guys' engagement and exposure and generosity like that from Arterius. We appreciate that so much, man. Thank you so much. Yeah. We always say, if you guys keep consuming, we're going to keep producing. So with that said, thank you so much. If you guys have any other questions, please bring it up to our attention and we'll bring you onto the show. Just awesome stuff. I lost my train of thought on this actual play.
So did
but
I started to bring, I remember I started thinking when you were saying, again, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the generosity. That's tremendous. So Floyd, sorry.
The
so
play
Floyd,
before this, it was a cross chop, right?
Yes. And Floyd heats up Howell and he gets the QB hit. He gets the pressure, but Howell gets the ball out. But as he did it, he started to time the snap count. And you see him on this one, he's got it timed. He sees the tight end come over, he widens, and then bang, he knows it because he's got the cadence down. And that's
look how the center's butt drops before before the ball's actually snapped. He's like anticipating. I wonder if that's what he picked up on. You can see the butt drop of that center.
And so that I was wondering too, but there's like so many potential things. I didn't know if it was like something he's hearing or if it's the motion of the line or if it's something with Howell. But yeah, he's looking directly down at the center. And I mean, granted, maybe he just has superhuman instincts or reactions and can just time the snap, but I doubt it. Like, I think he's keying in on the center and he sees it. And the get off is what sends Wiley at right tackle into chase mode. Like, Floyd's get off is ridiculous. And then because he's so wide, he's able to take that angle and basically can just flatten. which is awesome. But then this is where, Eric, that piece that we've talked about and what we wanted, he's got the juice, but then he's got that athleticism. He's got that bend to be able to dip underneath Wiley. And he dips under him so hard. Like, Wiley is turning and running, and he gets so little contact with Floyd that he just wipes out and falls down to the ground, isn't on all
Bear
fours.
crawling.
Like, yeah, because he went so hard to get Floyd, and it's just he's grasping the air. Like, that's what we wanted off the edge for this team. That athleticism, that juice, and that bend, and then to put it all together in a nice little bow, he's also got like the anticipation and the recognition. And again, that's awesome in a vacuum. It's even better once Von Miller comes back. Now you got two dudes like that, and then your third guy is Greg Rousseau, who's tremendous as well. Very, very exciting.
Right, and so we're gonna move on to another interception, this time by AJ Epenesa. And it's funny how you've heard several players since this game talk about, hey, this is nothing new. He makes this play all the time in practice. And it's funny because you wouldn't expect that from Epenesa, especially for as long as we've tracked him. You wouldn't expect him to kind of excel in this area and for it to pay off finally, on the field. So this is what is exciting, when we're talking about these four-man pressures, right? These sim pressures, these creeper pressures, is that you can show these different looks. As I said earlier, you have both these linebackers mugging the A gaps, right? So the Bills are showing 6 possible pass rushers on this play. So the offensive line and running back, they have to account for this. And what I loved about this play is this little twist by Milano. Milano initially drops out, right? Initially, like he's going to drop out, steps back, and shows almost the same movement that Terrel Bernard does, like they're dropping out like they normally do. Well, he doesn't drop out. Phillips is coming inside. Milano is once again, rushing right there. And it's not a bad pass off by the guard right there. Not a bad pass off at all. But again, affecting the quarterback. That's what you saw from Bernard, whether it was his sack or, where he was pressuring the quarterback, getting him outside the pocket for Leonard Floyd to clean up sack there in the game. Affecting the quarterback. That's what you want to do with these sim and creeper pressures. And Milano's pressure does. It gets Howell off the spot, gets him to drop his eyes and want to escape the pocket there. And Epenesa dropped out into the underneath area. Another simple coverage right on the back end. It was another simple coverage by Epenesa, a simple cover 3 drop. But now the quarterback has to make a decision. Does he want to run it, or does he want to try to throw an up and over an Epenesa? And again, a guy that got him earlier, with that interception to Hyde, he tries throwing it up and over, and just look at the extension. Look at him climbing the ladder and then the soft hands to bring it in and take it to the house, man. Again, scheme, complementary football, pass rush, coverage. That's what they're going to need this week when they play the Dolphins. You're going to have to throw the kitchen sink at Tua. You can't show the same type of plays, and you got to have these different wrinkles to their creeper pressures. This is what is so exciting, because now they have 2 linebackers who both can rush the passer. And you have guys at edge, Epenesa, Floyd, that are, very good at dropping out into those underneath areas and making plays like this.
Yeah, this is just so good from start to finish. If you go to the very beginning where you have like everybody diagrammed up and all the lines. So this one, we talked about the creeper pressure earlier. This one is a simulated pressure. Eric, just like you drew it up, like you said, it would be a simulated pressure if you had those linebackers like mugged up. This is what you got here. You've got Milano in an A gap. You've got Terrel Bernard in an A gap. So they are showing a 6-man pressure look. But then on the snap, like you said, Bernard drops out. Milano rushes, AJ Epenesa drops out. So now you're rushing 4, but you've dropped a traditional rusher in AJ Epenesa. You've brought a non-traditional rusher in Matt Milano, but because you showed pressure before you did it, it is now a simulated pressure. So I love that piece. Again, them leaning into it. Milano gets him off the spot. What I love the most, and you see it on the sideline angle on this play, Epenesa, he IDs the crosser coming over. Yes, he picks it up. Like, this isn't like he's just sitting there standing in the middle of the field and then Howell runs to him. He's like, oh, let me come up and make a play. He IDs the crosser. And then you can see on this angle what's nice, when he comes forward, start to slow it down right here. Boom. He breaks down. He doesn't just come flying up to give Howell the opportunity to, float it over the top of him and put a little teardrop floater into Dotson. He comes up trying to cover down on Dotson and then breaks down, takes that away, comes forward, uses his height and his length, and then he chucks Howell to the ground
Yeah.
after he intercepts
Disrespectful,
it.
man. Get
Yeah,
off
like,
me.
yeah, get the hell off me. It just chucks him. It's a really nice athletic play. But what I love the most is it was like for an edge player that
Yeah.
is a true edge and not like an outside linebacker edge.
Yeah,
It's
he
a
saw
very
that crosser. I
yes,
agree. He
it's
completely saw it.
bro, like that's tremendous for a guy who, but again, maybe that makes sense of why he, he's doing this kind of stuff in practice. He's more coverage sound than we know. It was
Yeah.
a very strong coverage sound play, especially for a guy that is not used to dropping in regular season games. And then you add on top of it that he houses it, that he chucks Howell to the ground, and that it came from a simulated pressure. All beautiful. And Eric, exactly like you said, that's the kind of stuff they're going to need against Miami because you want to have numbers in coverage because of the speed and the dangerous, the dangerous aspect that their weapons pose, but you still want to generate pressure. And if you can't do it with straight up 4, do it with Sims and creepers, confuse and attack.
Yeah, and we talk about bullying. I mean, Ed Oliver makes so many plays in the run and the pass game. Here he's in a 2-point stance, and he
This rep
just
is so disrespectful.
it is. He's just waiting for that one-on-one. He's like, you know what? Okay, I'm going
La,
speed
la,
the
la.
power, and he just drives him back and just says, "Get over here." Just one of those plays where, again, Ed Oliver was just on another level in this game, and he's been playing lights out this entire season. He just owned this rep. He owned Charles on this play, on this power move, one-on-one. Just, oh my goodness, just again
Bro.
pushing the pocket right into his face.
Yeah, it's just comes off so like
I'm better than you too.
Yeah, just it makes me feel like a point guard who knows that like the guy guarding him can't stop him, so he just comes up the court real slow, and then once he gets to the 3-point line, just kind of kicks it up and crosses him over and attacks the paint and drives the lane. Like that's what you get here in Oliver. And I love once he finally makes contact, the pop and the power go slow here. Boom, right there.
Mhm.
So the guard's hand, you can easily see because it's covered in white. He's got the sleeve and then the glove. He's just flailing. Like he's got no contact. He's got no leverage piece on Oliver because he got popped and driven back and knocked back so hard. He's got nothing. Then his right hand comes off. He can't anchor. He can't get set. There is no hope. Like Oliver came out and just took it easy, kind of hesitated, and then kicked it into full gear and ran through him and then gets the sack. Like this is that rep that everybody wants to see consistently from him, saying like, well, he's a top 10 pick. He needs to play like a top 10 pick. He's been doing so much that has been going unnoticed. It's nice to finally see him having those splash plays that are bringing that recognition that he deserves.
Yeah, and talk about recognition for the last play of this defensive breakdown. It's
Our boy.
yeah, DaQuan Jones on the sack here. Just his get off this year has I always say next level. It's been next level. Like it's so overwhelming. You see that swim like club right there. Boom, just clubs the back of that guy. Just disrespects him, and then just look at him work and grind to break down that edge. So he broke down the edge of this guy. So he broke down and won that edge. But now he's fighting with this guy right here to break down that edge. So he's working through 2 guys. And I mean, it frees up Jordan Phillips. And you see DaQuan Jones right there to bring down the quarterback. You got to give props to DaQuan. He made so many plays, again, in the run game as well, freeing up those linebackers, Milano and Bernard. But you see him earn this sack here against the Commanders.
Yeah, there's speed, there's tenacity, there's get off, there's that grind aspect. Like it just looks like you're like trying to block a grizzly bear inside. Like he's just working you down and grinding through. Like grinding is the exact perfect way to put it. I don't even want to analyze it further. I do want to highlight Kingsley Jonathan. I like his inside move on the right. This should have been a penalty. Like he's getting to the QB. He literally gets grabbed and chucked down to the ground. He had a couple nice reps on this one. Like the Bills are just firing on all cylinders. And for DaQuan, like we love what he does in the run, his ability to anchor against double teams and split them and just muddy things on the inside. But again, I feel like we say this almost every week. What he offers, that's a very Grizzly Bear like celebration after as well. Like what he offers as a pass rusher has, I just think, exceeded our expectations. Like consistently being able to affect the game from a pass rush standpoint is tremendous for him. And again, like I mentioned earlier, 234 qualifying edges and defensive tackles so far this year. He is 20th in pass rush productivity. His main job is just to be an effective piece against the run, which he does, but he's adding real pass rush juice and pop. Man, like him and Ed Oliver have become a real tremendous tandem inside. They've been dominating week in and week out. And again, trying to tie it into things going forward, they're going to need to have a strong game this week against Miami to make things easier for the back seven and the coverage unit. And with how they're playing, it looks like they could continue that trend.
No doubt. So with that said, that's the end of the defensive side of the ball. But while we transition to the offensive side of the discussion and film, please take a listen to this OnePass read from Greg and our boy AQ, of course, because these guys, again, they're on later tonight after us, I believe. Make sure to check them out. Anthony, if you don't mind, roll that video real quick.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One OnePass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore, or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
Now that's again, that's how we are able to do what we do. Your subscription to our insiders and becoming a premium sub allows us to not only bring this technology and all the cool things we do here in the film room, but also bring on writers and bring on creators to the channel and expand our network and continue to expand. We're always looking to expand, to bring you guys all facets of the Buffalo Bills and football and draft and college football. Like, we want to cover it all for you guys at the quality level that we are known for. So with that said, if you guys aren't an insider yet, please sign up. The link will be in the description. And again, jump into the Slack channel, because that's what everyone raves about, especially on game days.
Yeah, there's just, again, we talk about Slack every week, like the multitude of different channels, like the Bills options, the fantasy football options, like there's something for everyone. And I think Aaron said it in the video, and Eric, you and I say it every week, like it's just a good community. There's not a lot, if any, toxicity. Like, it's just good back and forth. Like, the disagreements are healthy. Like, it's just a fun environment to talk Bills, talk football, fantasy football, like anything and everything. There's just like random political conversations and different channels for that. Like, there's little film pieces that we throw in as well. It's just a really great piece. And again, it's tremendously helpful for what we do as a brand, as our, this is awesome, as our super chats and these, off the script donations. Thank you very much, True to Guns, for being here and for the super chat. And then coming through and saying Bills can beat anyone on any Sunday. It's just a matter. Oh, this is very insightful. It's just a matter of them not beating themselves. Fear no one. I like the fear no one. It gets intense. I like, and then he follows.
Oh, he's bringing the heat. I like it. All right.
Don't worry about any damn team, period. 2 exclamation points.
Let's
bringing
go.
the heat. But you know what, Eric? Like, to that point, the Bills have, we talked about it coming in, like the depth that they have. And it's not just like, B- C+ depth. They have a lot of quality depth and top tier ability now. And with them firing on all cylinders, they are one of the best teams in the league. And when they're right, they are right and very tremendously hard to beat. And I know you can say that about a lot of teams in this league, but it often feels like when they have lost, they've been their own worst enemy and kind of beaten themselves. So I understand his point there.
Yeah, totally. And we saw in week 1 with the turnovers and Josh Allen. And, in that game, if Josh doesn't turn over, they're probably going to win that game. And so that's why the last 2 weeks, I know a lot of people are still hung up on Ken Dorsey and his offense. And listen, we've been super critical of Ken Dorsey over the last year, but we've also are able to admit that some of the new wrinkles that he's showing, that not just us, we're not the only ones picking up on it. National media are picking up on some of these cool wrinkles that Dorsey is throwing in there. Like, I really like what they're doing across the board, but especially in this game where they use some different personnel groupings. Bring in that extra offensive lineman and David Edwards. We're going to show the film on that, which again allowed them to not only help Spencer Brown, but also secure the interior depth of the pocket. And they used a lot of play action to do that. Josh was near 22.9% play action, which We would even like to see that higher.
Yes.
But on those big plays down the field, they were able to secure the defensive line of the Commanders, which was priority number one coming into this game. So it allowed them to attack downfield with those shot calls, but calculated shots. And so you saw that, and you saw the Bills score on a couple of those, and sometimes they weren't there. Josh pull it down and run, and Josh would check it down. So he's being smart with it. And so I like what Ken Dorsey, and we'll talk, if we have time, we'll talk about the run game and Aaron Cromer. But I liked what Ken Dorsey did in this game against Commanders at securing the most dangerous part of that defense, and that was up front.
Absolutely. We talked about it last week with the Raiders, how tremendous Max Crosby is, but there is really no one else to account for on that Raiders defense. Now, you still have to account for him, and the Bills did. They nullified him in a variety of ways. We broke that down last week. You broke it down in another separate video as well. And see, that's a great comment there from Steve saying for Allen to go untouched against the Commanders front is an amazing job by Dorsey, period. Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, I believe Young, Sweat, and Abdullah Anderson were all in the top 20 for pass rush productivity coming in. You've got a literal cavalcade up front. That way I didn't even mention Payne. Like, they've got a squad up front. So you've got top-tier talent, but you've also got depth across the board. It was going to take a lot of work schematically and individually from an execution standpoint to kind of mitigate their pass rush. And yeah, Eric, I think like you said, like it started with the design, like some of those, pocket movement plays, the under center play action, even the way, like we mentioned earlier, like how they attacked with the run, more, they ran some wham, they were running pullers, they were trying to take advantage of that upfield presence. They were getting physical, and it was nice to see what they did, little tweaks and wrinkles and adjustments and changes in the game plan, but kind of funneling into the overall structure and identity that they've had over these past several weeks and continuing to keep Allen in rhythm and kind of making some plays for him. It was, again, another well-designed game plan from Dorsey, and then attaching Aaron Cromer to that as well.
Yeah, and like I said, if we have time, because we're running behind as always, we're at an hour in, smash that like button, leave us a comment, tell your friends about us. We're going to start bringing out some of the offensive film, and we're going to start off with a bang on this play. This is one of those plays where Josh Allen extends the play on 3rd and 8 to hit Stefon Diggs. And this is our real estate rewind, courtesy of Jonathan Miller of Metro Robbers Realty. Once again, Josh holds onto the ball, doesn't throw it to Kincaid underneath, extends the play as the Commanders get that free rusher. But Josh is able to get outside the pocket and drop a dime from this end zone angle. You'll see how much of a dime this was. There's the free rusher and Sweat. Josh gets outside the pocket, and then as he's fading away, is able to drop this. Look at the trajectory and how the ball just drops in. The tip of the ball just drops into Diggs on this play. That's why this play is our real estate rewind play of the week.
Just a ridiculous throw. Like for him to even have like Sweat bearing down on him. Again, like Montez Sweat is a legitimate edge rusher in this league, tremendously productive for Washington. He makes him miss and then gets outside. And this throw, like on the run, a little bit kind of across his body, like watch as you go slow here, like watch as he throws it. He's just kind of just chucking this thing. Look at his both feet are off the ground and he's still fully leaning into his right midair. And then Eric, like he said, like where it lands, perfect. Because that's also not bad coverage by Forbes. Like Forbes is there and he even gets a hand there to try and make a play. The ball placement is tremendous. And both end zone angles really like encapsulate how strong of a throw this is. Like the hesitation to get Sweat up in the air, the athleticism, and then the ball placement. And also Diggs working in tandem with Allen, like making that turn, throwing the hand up, trying to get himself open, running that scramble drill right there. Yep, you have him highlighted. It's a ridiculous throw by Allen. And like we always talk about or like to like mention when you can see it, you always know how good a play is by how pumped the sideline is. And the sideline is pumped. My favorite play, if you go back a little, Ed Oliver, Shaq, and Phillips are all standing there with their helmets ready to take the field because it's 3rd down and this completion happens and they just turn around like, bruh, like just such a nasty play. Like they turn around like, oh, there we go. And
probably screaming at these Commanders fans are probably giving them shit, right?
You could tell, like, look at Phillips, like, and you could tell, like, he turns and starts to like mouth something to him, like, yeah, that's right. And then Poe is pumped up. Like, this was early in the game. It got the team energized and juiced up. Like, this was a nice kind of off-script statement play from Allen early and indicative of what he's capable, with the whole yin and yang aspect of his game.
Yeah, and we talked about getting that free runner. So what the Commanders do is they show several guys up near the line of scrimmage. You see Payne initially jump up like he's going to rush, but then he pops out as Mitch Morse slides to him. And so they don't have enough guys to really block it up because Kincaid is releasing. So Sweat is free. And as you said, Josh makes him miss with just separating his hand from the ball, little shoulder fake, buys him just enough time. And then he gets on his horse. That's the thing. His acceleration versus Sweat's acceleration was remarkable. And again, as you said, as he's kind of fading away and throwing it back, like it's unreal. That's why we had to, again, name this our real estate rewind play of the week, because you have to watch it several times, especially in slow motion. That's what we have. We talk about your guys' support. What it does, it allows us to bring that technology to you guys. Well, here's some slow motion. Just look at the trajectory on that ball. So thanks again to Jonathan Miller for sponsoring this segment.
Yeah, Jonathan Miller, we talk about every week, the technology that we have now, like we're using Huddle to slow this down and everything that we do. Jonathan Miller uses a lot of cutting edge technology to use that and applying to selling your home faster. Professional photographs, 3 videos, that's all included with each listing at no extra charge. He loves working with buyers and sellers in all price ranges. He donates a portion of his commission from each sale to rescue an animal. His phone number can be found in our episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. So we're very happy to have his partnership, and this is an awesome play for him to be able to sponsor.
Good stuff. All right, so on to the next play. We have 10 plays here on the offensive side of the ball. Next one we're going to be taking a look at is, I love the personnel grouping, 21 personnel. You got Gilliam. You have the tight end right here. So you have 2 running backs, 1 tight end. And just part of the scheme against the Commanders defense was misdirection, looking one way, throwing the other. And this play, they don't run this play enough, to be honest. And what they do is they use that, we talked about it last year a lot, is that surge motion by Gilliam out here. And a lot of times what the Bills like to do is kind of run like a pitch or outside zone with that surge motion coming across the formation. So they're getting the eyes to go that direction. But what are they doing? They're sneaking out. Dawson Knox right here on almost like a leak play. And look at how wide open he is. The linebacker's eyes are just in the backfield. He sneaks out right down the line of scrimmage, and he's there for a nice chunk of yards off of that play action play from under center. That's something we need to stress even more of, is using Josh Allen on play action under center.
Yes, and I love that you mentioned them, could lean into this leak a little more. Like, I love tight end leak stuff. I feel like I see it so much watching college ball and other NFL games, and with the athleticism the Bills have at tight end combined with the success of their run game now, I would like to see it even more in this offense. And like you said, going into this game, one of my big pieces after watching Washington was how you could get them on misdirection, whether it was, in the run game or in the pass game. And so this is beautiful. You get them fast flowing to the opposite direction with a run and a look that you have shown consistently, but now you have that play action piece tied to it. Eric, this is another thing we talked about last week that Ken Dorsey continues to do, tying these passing concepts into their run looks and having play action passes off of what looks to be like a very similar or identical run action for the defense. And it sucks the defenders in, creates that free piece. And yeah, that under center play action, getting Allen on the move. They threw a lot at Washington to basically not allow that front to be able to pin their ears back and understand, okay, he's going to take a 5-step drop or wherever. This is where the spot's going to be. They changed that spot. They changed that launch point for Josh Allen to try and mitigate or slow down the Commanders front. And it worked on a variety of plays throughout the game.
Yeah, I love that point, because not only did they use Josh Allen under center, they brought in extra offensive linemen so that they could take these shots down the field like you're going to see on this play, but they moved that pocket, right? Sometimes it was just a play action drop back. Sometimes it was play action quarter roll. Sometimes it was play action half roll. Like, they're changing the launching point, and they had to against that D line of the Commanders. And you're going to kind of see it on this play from the end zone angle. So let's break down this play. This is easy. This is sponsored by Easy Loan Auto Sales, making it look easy. And this is that play from Josh Allen to Gabe Davis, where it almost looks, when you watch it from the broadcast angle, like the ball takes off from Josh's hand like a drone. You know how you first like let a drone go and it just kind of like zooms at an angle that almost looks like an alien spaceship taking off? Like, that's the way it looked when it left his hand. Just a piss missile to Gabe Davis here. Once again, brought to you by Easy Loan Auto Sales, making it look easy. Josh Allen made this mundane play for Josh Allen look easy, but there aren't many quarterbacks making this throw on a rope like Josh Allen here. That, and when he does it to Gabe Davis for the touchdown.
No, and it's similar to, it made me think of how he hit Davis on that corner route against Miami in the playoffs. Just short side of the field, just like you said, piss missile, laser, dart, dime, like whatever, javelin, whatever verbiage you want to use to explain the throw. It's ridiculous from Allen. It's also good speed and pacing on the route from Davis. The way he takes off, and as he gets to the 25 here, you see him start to go forward, and he gets, I think it's Derek Forrest at safety. I could be wrong. Gets him to, as Forrest is starting to open up right now, so he's got his hips open. He gets him to turn just enough with that initial movement and his angle, and he gets Forrest to go more upfield and kind of towards the hashes instead of making that angle towards the sideline, and it gives him just enough separation and just enough room to give Allen more space and room to fit that throw in. And then Eric, tying it all together is that play action piece, but also that movement for Allen, making that rollout. So you get the fake to Khalil Shakir, or Diggs, I'm sorry. So you get some motion, and you get some piece there, and then you get the rollout action from Allen. So now he's starting to move, and that affects the rush lanes, that affects the rush angles, but then he stops, he sets up, and exactly, look at the pocket that has been created. We've got a double team with McGovern and Morris. We've got Torrance anchoring up front and affecting his man there. Daron Payne is getting blocked by Murray and Spencer Brown. Diggs is down there just focusing off the motion. That's a nice piece too, I think, from the sideline angle that you showed. Like, if things don't work out downfield, Allen still has the outlet underneath in Stefon Diggs. So that's a nice piece as well. There's just a lot going into this play schematically. And again, it's highlighted by Allen's arm and the ridiculousness. And then again, you have the 6 offensive linemen there, and Mr. David Edwards, who it was nice to see him line up as the 6 offensive lineman. He functioned well in a variety of looks. Again, just a lot being thrown at Washington, all with the idea here of mitigating that pass rush, and it worked.
Yeah, keeping that offensive line in to, again, make those shots, take those shots down the field. And, you see that eye candy from Diggs. Hey, Diggs coming across the formation, but then you got the split flow by the running back coming back over to block. And we talked about it last week. The Bills ran a lot of these 3-level passing concepts. This is more like another one of those sail type concepts where, hey, yeah, there's only 3 in a route, but it's half the field. So you're attacking the zone coverage on different levels. And as you said, Josh could have easily taken the check down here, but with that route that they sold, it almost looks like they're trying to sell this as like double post. Like they're going to run 2. That's a route concept that Josh loves to throw, is that double post where these guys are both going across here. And so it almost looks like that's what helps turn these defenders around, especially Forrest, as you highlighted. But it's good stuff. Again, from top to bottom, you can see what the strategy was on this play, and the strategy worked on the field. The execution was perfect. Josh, and you're maximizing Josh's big arm, and you're moving the pocket, and you're allowing him to see the ball clearly and see the field clearly down the field to Gabe Davis for the big touchdown.
Yeah, and you made it look easy, and shout out to our sponsor for that segment, Easy Loan Auto Sales. Regardless of your credit situation, Easy Loan can help you get behind the wheel and on the road to better credit. All of their vehicles include a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty, and with 3 convenient locations in Buffalo, Lockport, and Niagara Falls, they can get you driving today. Go to easyloanauto.com to start your accelerated approval right now. Making it look easy, Josh Allen, and that design of that play.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy freaking
nice.
play here.
Again, it's I feel like people might think like, oh, you guys are, harping on these little things, but it's just these little things. It's the run action. It's, creating an easy layered concept. It's moving the pocket a little bit. It's the 6 offensive linemen. All these little nuggets make it harder for defenses. And when you add up the multitude of those little differences, that's how you have sustainable long-term success.
Yeah. And when you're talking success, we saw it in this game. We've seen it through 3 games. Getting the ball to Stefon Diggs is usually going to lead to success and a lot of wins. 3rd and 8 play here. This is a 19-yard gain. Another really nice design play versus the coverage that the Commanders are playing. And Allen is able to find Diggs for 19 yards over the middle of the field. And so I want to talk about first the clearing route by Harty. So you see the switch release, you see the clearing route by Harty. There's been a lot of talk about, hey, Dorsey can't scheme him up. They're not finding his role yet. First of all, pump the brakes. It takes time. They're trying to incorporate this guy into the offense. With that said, there were several plays like this where Harty lifted coverage. So that is making an impact. So watch as he's getting vertical. And again, Bills are running almost like a sail concept, but because of the coverage, you see Diggs break it off. But look at the attention that Harty is commanding. That's impact. I'm sorry, guys. That's impact. Maybe you don't see it in the box score, but that's impact. And what that does is, in this quarter's coverage, that lifts those defenders, and you see why Diggs hooks it up right there at the 50. So on the last play, you saw Kincaid kind of make that, into a corner out on that sail concept, but because they're playing quarters coverage here, Diggs is hooking that up right in that soft spot. I mean, not soft spot. It's freaking, it's a chasm at this point. But a big throw, again, 19 yards on 3rd and 8, get the ball to Diggs. We see impact from Harty on the play, clearing things out. That's the kind of role they need, even if it's just early, and eventually they get the jet stuff going and some of those gadget plays, some of those screens. But right now, that's helping the Bills offense. That's making an impact.
Yes, and that's my biggest takeaway on this play. And Eric, it ties into something, a conversation we had a lot this offseason about Gabe Davis. And I know different people were pulling up different metrics from the national media of like he only runs a certain type of routes, and when he's targeted on this versus targeted on that, and they don't take into account like Gabe Davis would be that clearing route often at times, trying to pull coverage so that Diggs or somebody could fall in behind. Now you've got somebody who, Davis was fine in that role. Harty has more juice and more speed, and using him in this fashion, it just pulls coverage easier. And now you're setting this up on tape, and you're setting this up for your offense from a tendency perspective. Eventually, teams are going to start to have to close down a little bit on Diggs, or, don't, and you can just, die slowly with 20-yard chunk plays, but they're eventually going to close down on that. And then there'll be more space available for that route for Harty. Instead of being a clear out route, it'll be a shot down the field. And that's what his speed and his juice brings. Its value isn't always tied to the raw stats and catches and yards. Sometimes it's we talked about it with Ed Oliver doing the dirty work that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. That's Harty doing the dirty work that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. He pulls that coverage. Diggs breaks it off, but Diggs breaks it off because Harty pulls that coverage. It's everything working in tandem conceptually. And then you also get a nice pocket and protection for Allen on this play as well.
Yeah. Again, Dawkins has been playing lights out in this game and this season. And Josh, again, just moving the pocket just a little bit. And so he can unleash that big arm to Diggs for the 19-yard gain. Good stuff on 3rd and 8. That's how you move the ball. Keep the chains going. Next play, backed up situation, 1st and 10. And this is a 30-yard gain to Diggs outside of structure, off script. But this is a play they typically run backed up when they're at the 5-yard line, the 3-yard line. They're going to try to run some play action here, push the ball down the field, max protect, 2-man route. There's nothing there. Diggs extends the play, and the end zone angle is just gorgeous. But again, I like the scheme and their thought behind it. Most of the time you just want to run the ball to get some space here. So they bring an extra offensive lineman here. Here's Edwards. But it's not to run it. Again, they get Josh under center, and they're trying to max protect. So you get the play fake, and just think about it. Again, you're like, oh, there's only 2 guys in a route. Well, how many guys are now just hanging out watching the game? Look how many guys are there. It's the 8 guys down there. So yeah, there's only 2 guys in a route, but you see Josh scan the field. Great job by Deion Dawkins with the inside move here from Chase Young. Watch him drive Chase Young right across the face.
Washes him right down.
Washes him right down. But Josh, again, composed from under center, and he's keeping his eyes downfield. He didn't flinch at all. He just look at him slide. Now watch Diggs. Watch Diggs right here. It's amazing. Just breaks it off. And then Josh up and over the top. Big throw, 30-yard gain with their backs against their own end zone. Josh is halfway through the back of his end zone. He's able to find Diggs for the big play.
Yeah, I love the idea right from the beginning. You bring it, you're literally not even in the shadow of your own goal line. Like, you are on the goal line. This came after the Bills had to stop on 4th down there in the red zone. And you bring in that 6th offensive lineman, you put Allen under center, and everything screams, okay, run the ball. Let's just and we see it all the time. Let's just get 1 or 2 yards or 3 just to give us a little breathing room so we can run some other stuff. Like, Dorsey plays into all of that tendency expectation. They run the play action piece. You get the execution up front. But what's really made is by Diggs breaking this off and immediately throws that hand up. The end zone angle shows him not only throwing the hand up, but also like a pointer finger to be like, send it like deep. Like that's just scramble drill 101. And we've seen this now, I think, every single week. Stefon Diggs has uncovered either in with Allen scrambling or uncovered once he's seen how the coverage has distributed, and he figures out a way to find that space. He's such a good processor in real time and figuring out where the soft spots are in the defense, and it really allows him to kind of run open here after Allen just gets a bunch of time sitting in the pocket. Again, 6 offensive linemen, the play action piece, the under center piece, slowing down that rush, kind of max protecting, only sending 2 out, and then Diggs makes a play on the back end. So good scheme piece from start to finish, and then a great play by Diggs and a really good throw by Allen.
Yeah, and if you guys aren't noticing the theme here, under center, extra offensive lineman, play action, shot play. Here is a play from the bottom of the third quarter, 150 on the clock, 2nd and 7 situation. This is a 20-yard gain on this play. Under center again, play action, moving that pocket just a little bit. And then, man, again, the throw, it just goes through the hands of one of the Commanders defenders, and still the trajectory never changes. But again, watch Harty in the slot. All right, watch Harty in the slot. He is commanding and lifting that coverage. That's impact, guys. Hate to say it. That's impact. And you see that big throw from Josh Allen. I just love this stuff. Like, if the Bills can, get these chunk plays, these explosive plays, 20 yards or more, by bringing an extra offensive lineman and running play action and moving the pocket the way they are so they can secure the pocket and secure their quarterback. This is what we've been asking for. That right there, that dish is what we've been asking for Josh Allen. When he does this, maybe there's only 2 guys in a route and a check down. Well, guess what? Eventually, Josh is going to find someone with pockets like these.
Yes. He's going to have that time. He can survey, he can scan, and all he needs is that little glimpse of a window, and he can fire it in there. Cam Curl is going to be so upset at himself for not picking this off. Like, Allen just lasers it right by his hands. I also want to highlight, like, I think you don't have to have a successful run game in order to have play action work, but having a good run game, it helps a little bit. It makes the threat that much more real. It makes it that much more imposing.
And I'll interject by saying, we talked about in the fourth quarter, go back and watch that D line. It's not just the amount of plays that the offense for the Bills had. It was the run game. It was having to tackle Murray, Harris at times, having to chase a slasher and James Cook. Like, all of these play a factor, and those body blows. I think it was Schwartz who said that a couple years ago. It matters. So like you said, it may not always show in the box score, but the body language of those players late in the fourth quarter, halfway through the fourth quarter, of that D line, of all those first round draft picks, you see that those body blows did play a factor, as the game went on.
Absolutely. It wears on you. There's a reason why teams like start to run the ball in the fourth quarter, and you hear the terminology on the broadcast will be like, oh, the offensive line, is really starting to lean on that defensive line right now. Like, they get worn down and they get tired. And the Bills have been tying everything together really nicely. And the last piece on this clear out piece I want to mention, like, I think it's ironic we're talking about that for Harty in a week coming up against Miami, where with Hill and Waddle, there's so much clear out action. And then, like, they'll run a dagger concept and somebody's pulling coverage, and that, dig comes in right behind it. And people recognize it so much with Hill and Waddle or these other speed guys. Harty's doing the same thing, but it's going under the radar, and people are acting like because he's not gaining 15 yards on these gadget plays, that he hasn't been a good signing or hasn't been, a good injection into this offense. There's tremendous value here. Like, yes, great throw from Allen. Love the under center play action piece. Love the pocket, the extra lineman, all of that. Diggs has this space because Harty pulls the coverage, and that doesn't show up on the box score. It doesn't help your fantasy team and all of that. But that's the reason Diggs is so open. And so it's a ridiculous throw by Allen. You get a nice pocket, good under center play action, 6 offensive linemen, but Harty pulling the coverage is a tremendously key piece. And it's ironic that we're talking about it going up against a team that is known for pulling defenders and lifting the top.
No doubt about it, man. Like I said, it takes time. You're not going to just incorporate all these new weapons in immediately. And as the season progresses and as that film changes and teams start to key on certain things, it's going to open up for other players and other concepts and other, the themes that Ken Dorsey and this staff are going to put together. So I would just be patient with it, because maybe over the course of the season, maybe defenses stop playing those too high shells like we're seeing this Commanders team do. Maybe they go to more man coverage. And then guess what? Then Harty comes alive. Like in the run game too. That's the other thing. Like man coverage on the defensive side of the ball doesn't just help when you want to pass it. You can run those jet plays now, because now you have a guy chasing Harty across the field. So give it time. Be patient. And I'm telling you, it'll work out. And same thing with Kincaid. We've seen flashes, and you want a steady diet at Kincaid. Give it time. They're going to start to find some things for these guys. There's several new pieces on offense. You have a offensive coordinator in his second year. We're seeing some growth when it comes to that. We're seeing some growth in the run game, which we're going to switch to now, and a couple of these run plays. You're going to see some growth. You're going to see some growth by the coordinator and the staff, but you're also going to see it and how they incorporate these new players that they have in. So this is late in the game, fourth quarter, 8:12 on the clock. There's a few run plays I want to look at, and with the topic in mind of that misdirection, right? Again, this is later in the game. That misdirection, eyes this way and whatnot. There's some eye candy right there, and look what it does. It takes that guy out of the box. Bills are running just their mid zone. And this is one of Cook's favorite concepts last year, just mid zone, and then the cutback gets north and south, jukes a guy out of his jock strap, and then gets, again, a nice 10-yard gain. This is another one of those plays. And we talked about meshing the run and pass game, right, last week. Well, look, extra offensive linemen. Are they running it? Are they running play action pass here? They run it on this play with Edwards, and just watch this combination blocked by Torrance and Brown here. Look at the displacement. Boom, look at that hole. Cook gets north and south. Davis loses his jockstrap to Cook, and we have an easy 10-yard gain. James Cook has been lights out to start the season.
Yeah, he has been ridiculously productive in this offense, and just watching him fit into this offense with the juice and the explosiveness that he has, it's been tremendously refreshing. No knock to Devin Singletary, but so much of what Cook has done has been really tied to that juice that he brings. And out of 56 qualifying running backs, James Cook, second in rushing yards, tied for fourth in yards per carry, fourth in yards after contact, 10th in yards after contact per carry, which, Eric, that's ridiculous. Him being fourth out of 56 running backs in yards after contact and 10th after yards after contact per carry is not something we would have anticipated with what he showed at Georgia. He's also tied for 9th in missed tackles forced. He's tied for second in runs of 10 yards or more, and he's tied for fourth in runs of 15 or more. And again, from a pure volume standpoint, he's second in the league in rushing yards behind only Christian McCaffrey.
Crazy.
Like, who would have thought that the Bills run game would have that? And I love the piece at the end here, the misdirection. Eric, we called it out with the Bills defense last year. You'd send some motion and it would change those second level defenders, and it creates leverage for the offensive linemen. And that's what it does here. It moves those second level defenders. It helps Bates climb to the second level and seal his man. But the big piece, you highlighted it, Spencer Brown and Torrance creating a literal runway for James Cook. And then that pairs with his running style. He gets one-on-one, and you just see he puts that foot in the ground. I said it on another run on Twitter, like he almost looks like a slalom skier with the way he like dips those hips and gets in and out, like just the movement in the hole against an athletic linebacker in Jamin Davis. Like, this is well blocked. This is blocked for like 5 or 6, but he makes that move and he gets you 10. He gets that first down. So this is well executed up front. It's also a good call, using kind of attacking the potential weakness in the Washington defense with that misdirection. And then you get Cook succeeding. It's a nice knockout blow to end the game when a defense is tired and worn down.
Yeah, Cromer and Dorsey have put together a really nice run game, an array of concepts. And the plays that we picked for this portion of the breakdown, you're going to see several different concepts, misdirection, cutbacks, but we got to give Cromer some love here, some Cromer technique here. Watch David Edwards. That defender he's going up against is trying to use power, trying to get both hands on Edwards. Edwards just trying to execute a cutoff block. There are many ways to execute a cutoff block. Sometimes you're going to cut the guy. Sometimes you're going to try to reach him and use your quickness to get to the front side hip. Sometimes you just use your hands, and that's all it takes. As that defender's coming up with power and trying to stack Edwards, all he does is chop the hands down. It's so simple. And look how quickly, that guy Cook is already by him. So it just a little technical thing from Edwards, who has played under Cromer. He makes it look so easy. It doesn't, like, most people don't even notice this play,
Mm.
but it's just a little Cromer technique on the backside of that cutoff block there that really springs Cook on top of the
Hands.
combo block. Yeah,
Hands.
hands. Just fantastic stuff. But this might be the prettiest run of the day. Maybe not the longest, but the prettiest. And when you watch it from the end zone angles, there's just so much going on. And one thing we talked about going into this game, the Commanders were susceptible to gap type runs. And this is one of those plays that is not really a gap type run, but it's influencing and showing as a gap run. So this is just a little wind back run right here. So you get like a down block right here by Torrance, a short trap or pull from Morris. Watch it, and this is one thing I broke down on Twitter. Watch the influence block here from Kincaid. So he's making that DN think, hey, I'm going to block you, and then he releases. And that's just a little nugget of deception that holds up that defender from closing down on Cook, and it allows that block for Morris to be quite easy, and so Cook can get north and south. I love this type of play and concept because it's almost like poetry in motion, and you can see all the moving parts, and the hole that those little moving parts create is just massive, and Cook is able to get 10.
Yeah, there's so much going on from like a misdirection standpoint. And again, like you said, we highlighted going into the week as a matchup piece. Like you could get this defense, the linebackers and the defensive linemen, you could get them with these type of runs. And you get that trap aspect from Torrance inside. He does just enough on Deron Payne to not let him impact Cook too much. Cook widens it out a bit. And I would say we talk about it all the time, but you highlighted it there. Like
if that's not there, if that little ball fake and showing that ball's not there, Josh is probably getting tackled.
Yeah, because maybe Payne just bullies straight through because he's got the angle and he's got the lane, but he sees where that ball.
Look at the angle he takes. Yeah,
exactly. It changes his path, and then because it changes his path, it makes him widen out a little bit. It helps Torrance gain that leverage, and it allows Cook to stay clean. I love that point as well. And then you hit everything else. Like this is where you can kind of lean into some more of the strength of your guys, like Mitch Morse, one of the best movement centers in the league, letting him kind of, show that action and get out in space against Sweat after you influence him with Kincaid. And just look how much space there is for Cook. And this is, again, where his speed comes in. When you've got a guy with that real kind of juice, he eats up these free yards quickly. We talk about it when he gets the ball dumped to him or checked down in the flat all the time, but it's the same in the run game. When there is that little bit of daylight, he can get through it and you don't have to hold your blocks as long. When you've actually executed and created a runway, he eats it up in a hurry and just really bears down on you. And that's why he's partly been so successful from a volume standpoint.
All right. And here's another one of those plays, another, trap, a wham block by Morris. And Morris took one for the team on this play. Yeah. I will say, watch him trap the D tackle here, but he gets owned. But he does just enough so that Cook can work around him. And I mean, when you talk about, the slalom type cuts from Cook on this play, like it's just so filthy. Like that footwork, he's so much more comfortable this year. Last year, remember, like some of his cuts, he was like getting bit by the turf monster. Like now he's just so smooth, so quick, so compact with his cuts and just works. I mean, this is like the number one drill that running backs, when you're growing up, they put those bags out, those jump cuts. Yeah. And like, this is it in action on the field. And you see him work around those blocks. Again, an array of concepts. Get those defenders thinking one thing and do something else. And I feel like Cromer and this staff did such a great job in the run game, especially at keeping those defenders and top draft picks on that D line guessing and not really knowing where the blocks were coming from or what type of blocks they were going to see based on the formation that they're seeing in front of them.
Absolutely. Like throwing in different runs from similar personnel and similar alignments than they had previously. It's just another piece. Like they're trying to key in on certain aspects and they're trying to figure out tendency and what they can do pre-snap. And you're just changing those pieces. I think this is
real quick before you get going, because I know a lot of people are down on Dorsey. This is called crunch.
Oh, this is right out of my mouth. Yep.
This is a trend across the league. And I'm telling you guys, if you study Dorsey and you study some of the other offenses, he's doing a lot of the same things that are trending around the NFL.
Yep.
And this is one of them. Crunch is something that Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, and those guys ran. You saw Harbaugh even bring it to Michigan. They ran it.
Frank Reich ran a bunch of
it with
the Colts.
Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, actually, I think we might have even broke it down with Eric Wood a couple of years ago. But
Mm.
this is one of those plays that is coming back and trending right now. And, it needs some work. But like I said, Morris took one for the team on this play.
Yeah. So that crunch piece, you get the trap block from Osiris Torrance on Jonathan Allen there at defensive tackle, and then you get the wham block, which is basically a trap block, but it's executed by a tight end, so it's wham by Morris. Good job by Torrance. Like you said, Morris takes one for the team. And sometimes, again, it's not, you don't have to be the prettiest and have the best form when you block. Sometimes, Eric, you say it all the time, it's just about getting in between your man and the ball carrier, or getting in between
using angles, right? Like, there's no way if you're putting Morris on a D tackle or a DN, especially on the Commanders, he's not going to be able to probably hold his own. So you try to use that element of surprise. And that's what this wham block is. But again, those D tackles are freaking some of the best in the league, but he did enough, man.
And I feel like Payne looked really quick and saw Morris and felt disrespected and then just goes through him. But again, when you've got that kind of speed and the elusiveness of Cook, a running back who it's my favorite thing all the time. Like the Bruce Lee quote would just be like water. That's what James Cook is. And when he has that ability plus the speed, you don't have to latch onto your block if you're Quentin Morris. Just do enough to impede him. That's what Morris does. I also really like the block from Trent Sherfield. Down on St. Juice. Yeah, highlighted right there. Boom, number 16. Juice jumps inside. And so Sherfield's like, oh, okay, you're going to do that. I'm just going to latch on and I'm going to seal you. And then once Cook gets past the block from Spencer Brown, he's got that seal at that level and allows him to set up that block and set up his next move. You've got Morse climbing to the second level. You've got Gabe Davis climbing and helping Morse briefly. Like all of these pieces, the misdirection, the quickness, Cook's ability, it all ties in together. It's a really well-designed piece. And it's the reason that the Bills right now, their run game is first in total EPA, and they're first in EPA per attempt. I never thought, again, I know it's a small sample size. We're 3 weeks in. The Bills have the second leading rusher in all of football, and their run game is first in total EPA and first in EPA per attempt, which is unreal, especially considering how many good running teams are out there like the 49ers and the Eagles.
Right. Yeah, and taking some of that pressure and responsibility off your quarterback so he's not having to think on 98% of the plays. He can just hand it off, enjoy the show like you saw in that last play.
And again, you know what's funny, Eric, is we're saying all that going into Miami week after last year, the first game against Miami in week 3, we broke it down.
What do we
that
say?
Game, all Miami did was tax Josh mentally and physically. Everything was on his shoulders mentally and physically.
Right. And so now we're looking at this final play of this breakdown. Fourth quarter, 4:38 left on the clock. Obviously, the Bills are up big. This is a crack toss, and I want you to watch from the end zone angle because it'll show you how exhausted that D-line was. They didn't want to pursue James Cook out wide on this play. He's able to break it for 34 yards on the crack toss play. We see a bunch from James Cook and the Bills, a play that the Dolphins are going to run a ton on Sunday. But watch this defensive line. And again, they're overloading to the left side of the screen here. But just watch how once the defense gets outflanked with a nice block at the point of attack right here by Morris on Chase Young, just watch Cook get the edge. And here's Jonathan Allen.
Abdul Anderson.
Abdul Anderson. Like, there's just no one going to the ball. Look how tired they are. They're not even running at this point. They've given up. Their will has been broken at this point. And again, that has to do with the Bills defense getting the ball to the offense, but also some of the concepts, the misdirection. They were taxing the defensive line. The Bills were. And so really nice work out in front. You get that speed on the perimeter, and this was that dagger run by James Cook.
I love that you highlighted, Miami's crack toss game because they absolutely murked Denver with it a ton, and their speed on the edge is such a problem. And this is a nice piece. The Bills have a successful crack toss game as well, and it starts with that block on Chase Young by Morris. Again, he doesn't hammer him, he doesn't destroy him, just push him inside. Like, that's all you got to do. Like, redirect him, actually gets him really off his inside foot a little bit. Yeah, that's a nice piece. Gets him out. Boom. Then I like the block. Boom. We're in sync here. And they're coming back on tour. We should go and watch them. Just kidding. Trent Sherfield, his block on Cam Curl. We talked about it so much, like his ability as that power slot as a blocker. He gets his hooks into Cam Curl there. Curl tries to work through him. He
Yeah.
seals that. And then our boy Ryan Bates, look at
Yeah,
him
watch
out in
him out of the
space.
gates. Watch his explosion from his center position. He's like, I don't care about the nose tackle. I'm going to the second level. Watch how quick he gets out in front. Like look at the angle he's taken. Phenomenal work by Bates on this play, and then blows up that linebacker. Again, everyone's working here, but that D-line is shot, man. They're just watching the run on this play. It's awesome stuff. And one last thing I want to highlight, because I know Spencer Brown's been the whipping boy for the last few weeks. Watch him on the backside of this run. We talked about technique. We talked about Cromer. Watch the little slingshot right here. Look at the arm lift right there, and then the slingshot by him gets out in front of Payne, and Payne's like, what the heck? You're not going to call that? You're like, call what? Like, it's just really good work from the Bills offensive line. And again, the staff from the top down, working good concepts, getting that D-line tired, chasing horizontally, east and west, north and south. Like, they were on their toes the entire game. And again, that's why I took a lot of heat for saying it when the game was on. I saw growth from Dorsey and Cromer in this game, and I've seen it the first few weeks. And so it may be like small little things here and there that we're pointing out in the film room, which is why you guys come here.
Yes.
But you're seeing some things from this staff that we hadn't seen last year, and things that we've wanted. And you're seeing it, and it's leading to success on the field for these players.
Yes, you're seeing growth schematically and from an execution standpoint in both the pass and the run. You are seeing good concepts. You're seeing good, well-designed game plans based on attacking and exploiting your opponent's weaknesses, and also at the same time, this is a big one, mitigating their strengths. And we've seen it on back-to-back weeks. And hell, even I know the Bills lost in week 1. Their offensive game plan wasn't bad in week 1. Josh Allen just didn't execute like he needed to. Like, Dorsey has come out of the gate very strong with his week-to-week game plans and schematic design, and tying it in together with Aaron Cromer, their protection plan, the run game, all of it. Things seem to be gelling well. And I don't know, maybe it's just having that first year under their belt together of Dorsey and Brady and Cromer, and now they know how each likes to work. Or maybe they were all super pissed after how the season ended, and so they all went and did a ton of self-scouting and really grinded and came back
and inserted a bunch of passing plays from when Josh was on his game with Dable.
Yeah,
I'll say it. They've done a lot of those 3-level passing concepts that we saw early in Josh's career. We're seeing a lot of those. Again, those half rolls, and they're incorporating the offensive lineman. You're starting to see a lot of things that we saw with Allen when he was operating at a super high efficiency in 2020 and 2021. And the Bills, don't get me wrong, Dorsey is still operating one of the most efficient offenses, but he's doing it a little differently this year than last year. Last year it was, hey, I'm going to run the efficient play play call or scheme or concept versus this coverage. Now he's kind of bringing that into, okay, I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to do it in a way that I know that Josh likes this concept. He's comfortable in this concept. He's run this concept since Wyoming. Like, we're starting to see them kind of mesh those two things. And as you said, you're adding a run game with some nice little nuggets in there with influence blocks, some traps, some whams. It's been fun. And, again, we still got a long ways to go, but I've seen growth, and I want to see more. Of course, I want to see more. I want to see some new wrinkles. I don't want to stop there, because teams are going to get, we're going to watch the film, and they're going to start to slow things down on what the Bills like to do in the first few weeks, and they're going to have to adjust again. So we'll see that next. But that was a fun game on both sides of the ball. Both game plans were money, and we got to see the attitude and personality of both the offense and defense against the Commanders.
That's very well said. And yeah, strong performance on both sides of the ball against a team that came in confident. Like, Commanders were 2-0. Granted, they're one of those wins was against Arizona, and not a pretty fashion, in a comeback fashion, but they had a quality group up front. We talked on the other side briefly, last week going into the game, like the skill position group for the Commanders is tremendous. McLaurin and Dotson and Samuel. Logan Thomas didn't play in this game, but Cole Turner isn't nothing to sneeze at. Like, Gibson and Robinson are a fun running back duo. The Bills had a complete game plan from start to finish. And exactly like, we titled this episode, a defensive masterclass from Sean McDermott, and the graphic says dominant. And that's what they really were on both sides of the ball, from an execution standpoint, a schematic standpoint, especially defensively. And it's nice to see, I guess, more offensively for what I'm about to say, but we're seeing these building blocks and this foundation being set early on. And that's That's what you need. You don't want to come out and just empty the chamber and empty the clip in the first 3 weeks. Like, that's not how it works. You build, you set the foundation, and then you grow from there. You stack, you adjust, you grow. If you show everything early on, everybody knows who you are, but you establish your identity and start to put in these little wrinkles and these building blocks, or stay with what you know works, and you add little tweaks here, little changes here, a little bit of motion here. Let's get to the sale concept in B instead of going through A. And then later we're going to get to it by going to C. We're already seeing glimpses of it. And that's what's so exciting from an offensive standpoint. Even just the basic piece, Eric, against the Raiders, duo, force their corners to tackle. Against Washington, nah, we're going to run more pulls. We're going to run trap. We're going to run ram. We're going to attack with more traditional gap runs in a gap
pullers,
sense. Yes, a different game plan, but a successful one that worked down the stretch.
But it was all under the umbrella of, like, it was cohesive. There were times where when Bobby Johnson was here, they ran all these different types of concepts, but it was just like they were throwing darts at the board. There was no cohesion when it came to personnel and formations. It was just too easy to decipher. And so teams were able to shut down the run game. There's just so much more cohesion this year between the pass game and the run game, which is something we've been clamoring for, over the years. And so it's nice to see, again, we're seeing those building blocks. You're seeing the Bills win. You're seeing Josh Allen win in ways that, you're going to have to win in different ways. That's the NFL, right? Sometimes it's going to be Josh Allen making superhero plays. Sometimes it's going to be Josh Allen relying and being patient and relying on the scheme and relying on his teammates to run the ball.
Yes.
Then you get that play action. It sucks. I know it's not as flashy, but this is what it's going to take to win late in the year.
Yes. Everything offensively and defensively, it seems purposeful and more direct, and the plan behind it. It's very exciting to see. I got to bring up this one comment. RJ and I go back and forth all the time. This comment's ridiculous. I know you don't like Ken Dorsey. Last year, RJ says, last year Dorsey was easily a bottom 5 OC.
It's crazy.
I'm not even going to read the rest of it, but he did get better. He seems like he is now a middle of the pack OC. That's a big jump. This offense improved in every efficiency metric last year from the year before with Dable. They were second in DVOA offensively. To say he was a bottom 5 OC, especially in his first year, not even count. Come on, man. What are we doing here? Bottom 5 OC. This was still one of the top offenses in the NFL last year. Now, does that mean he was above criticism? No. We criticized the hell out of him on the show, on Twitter. We broke down a ton of pieces.
Hours doing it.
Tons. And to say he was a bottom 5 OC, come on. That's, I just.
A little too far there, buddy.
I can't do it. But again, it's nice to see RJ that you recognize that he is getting better, even if you think he was bottom and eventually went up. But Eric, a tremendous performance from this Bills team. Really nice to see them clicking on a lot of cylinders offensively and defensively as we go into this game against Miami. We're going to be breaking everything down in the film room next Wednesday. But quickly before we leave here, where's your head at when it comes to this game against the Dolphins? Is it offensively? Is it defensively for the Bills? Is it schematics? Is it player pieces? What's kind of your big takeaway right now as you're getting prepped for Dolphins Bills? So
I started doing my research yesterday, obviously still having to do this show before I turn the page, but I started with the Dolphins offense, and there's a lot of speed. Obviously there's a lot of motion. And so I think I'm worried when it comes to that motion and speed, because McDaniel's going to show a bunch of the things that he has on film already, but he's also going to show the plan B behind it. He's going to build stuff on top of that. So I hope McDermott is able to stay ahead of that, right? And it is going to come down to fundamentals, tackling being number one, whether it's the run or pass game, especially tackling in space. It's going to be huge. But I still want to see that mentality of attacking and being aggressive, but they're going to have to do it in a different manner. They're not going to be able to bring extra guys because you don't want to give Miami that much space. And so you want guys in population around the ball. So my thing that I've noticed right off the bat is, yes, the motion, but usually when they motion, they're going to go to Tyreek Hill. All right. Based on my research, they've motioned 71 times. 29 of those targets have gone to Tyreek Hill. So keying on Tyreek Hill is a huge thing when motion is happening. And are they going to build things off of that? Yes, absolutely. I think the second closest guy in targets when there's motion was Mostert.
And Waddle missed last
Waddle
week
missed
with
a game,
concussion.
so he has 7. He's like tied for third. So obviously it'll be a little different there, but obviously Tyreek Hill is kind of setting things up for that offense. And so, sometimes it is going to be Hill getting the ball. Sometimes it's going to be a setup and it's going to be a decoy. So I hope that all this talk that Miami's getting, not just from the media, but even from the respect that the Bills are showing them in pressers, I hope they're not putting them on a pedestal, because let's not forget that this defense has played pretty well against the Dolphins. And there are different ways that McDaniel has attacked the Bills defense and had their way, especially in like the run game last year. I'll invite the run game. I'll invite the run game versus the pass game. So I just hope that this team is respecting them, but not to the point where they're putting them on a pedestal and they're going to get intimidated by them on the big stage at home. So keep everything in front of you, population to the ball. That's where I've started right now. When we're talking this game, I'm just on the defensive side of the ball for the Bills versus the Dolphins offense. So that'll be the key, man.
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot. Seeing what Miami can do on the ground. I like how they've tied their motion and we know how they leverage and create space in the pass game, what they do with motion. Now they're starting to do it in the run game, the crack toss piece we talked about earlier, and just seeing what they've done on the ground. They're first in yards after contact. They're third in yards after contact per rush. They're second in broken tackles, second in missed tackles, first in broken tackles.
That's what speed can get you.
Bro, yeah, I know. And
you can't fit up the runner. You can't fit up the receiver. You can't fit up the runner. That's what happens. You get those arm tackles, and that speed is blazing.
And especially with their backs, like Mostert and A-Chain have better contact balance than you would think. Miami's also second in EPA per rush and second in total EPA on the ground, again, second to the Bills in both of those categories. But the Bills defense so far this year, they're giving up 4.7 yards after contact per rush. Last year in week 15 against Miami, when Miami committed to the run more, the Bills gave up 5.6 yards after contact per rush, and Miami had a 0.36 EPA per attempt on the ground. The Lions led the league last year in EPA per attempt on the ground at 0.09. So Miami blew that out of the water in that one game. And, the pass game is going to be huge, but this run game has now a lot of intricacy and passing game elements to it. They also have found a way to tie in their run game looks with their, famed wheel seam flat route concept in the pass game. Like, there's a lot to like with what Miami's doing. It's going to be a really fun schematic game, and talent on both sides of the ball, important in this AFC East. There's a lot to look forward to. And, if you want to see more insight on Miami and more insight into what they're doing, give Eric a follow on Twitter at, the Cover One handle there, covering the number one. He also has the other account, Eric J. Turner. Give me a follow on the old Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. I also broke down a bunch of Dolphins game tape on my episode of Disguised Coverage last night. Feel free to check that out on the Cover One channel. We have got to go. Before we do, if you haven't already, please drop a like on this video. It goes a long way towards helping us track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So whether you're watching live now or watching later, please drop a like. If you're podcasting apps or platforms and you're listening, please rate and review and subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. Please subscribe to the Cover One Film Room here on YouTube and to the Cover One YouTube channel as a whole. Thank you again to that huge super chat. Yeah. Meant a lot to us. Thank you to the other super chat that came through as well. We greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much for the kindness, the support, whatever form and fashion it comes in. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is. If you thought it was terrible, tell your enemies. Try and ruin their day with it. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We will see you next Wednesday live, 7 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of the Cover One Film Room. But until then, I am Anthony Prohaska. That is Eric Turner. This has been the Cover One Film Room. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.